Hello, everyone, and welcome to 3 Words, a bite-sized podcast about the significant and yet very strategic choices you can make, I can make, we all can make in becoming the best versions of ourselves. And what better time to talk about this conversation and this notion of continuing to grow and develop and mature in becoming the best version of ourselves than during a global pandemic. And so I'm so thankful to have found and identified a space and to be able to be here with my dear friend, Amy Seifert, author, speaker, motivational life coach, to be able to engage in a very real, in a very raw conversation with you about these 3 words.
Know your worth.
And before we dive in to maybe a deeper dive or a deeper description about this notion of knowing your worth, let's just pause and get real.
Let's do it.
Amy and Michael, raw and real, honest. Last night was a moment for you.
It sure was.
Would you share that with us?
And even into this morning.
Okay, let's talk.
Yeah, my husband and I went on a date, which is pretty limited
Sure.
on what that looks like. So we ordered carryout and went on a little drive to get it. And I was just ready to have a good time. But as he just asked me, how's your day? How was your day? Just a normal question. And I just lost it. Lots of things bubbling up and, it just all tumbled out. So I have felt so pulled in every direction. All the hats I could possibly wear are shoved on all at the same time with no help. I have 3 kids. Mm-hmm. And so the day everybody came home, 48 days ago, we should have had a conversation before on how's this going to look, but we've just been kind of managing it day by day.
Homeschool mom, you now are doing all the things that you're still doing.
I'm doing all. I had to launch. I can now say I had the privilege of launching a book in the pandemic. I can see it there, but there was still a lot of loss.
Yeah.
Several huge speaking events canceled. That's great for a book tour. I had a trip to Israel that just got canceled again yesterday. Homeschooling with kids. I think the rub for me was even the jealousy I felt of my husband getting up and going to work in the basement. And I had to still complete and do my work, but it's among all 3 of the kids in their work. And so I'm doing my stuff, but constantly being interrupted.
Uh-huh. I'm sure people who are listening and watching are thinking, me too, right?
Yes.
But last night it seemed like it kind of hit this, the wall.
Yeah.
Because I was reading on social media today and I'm like, Amy and I are going to sit together in this socially distanced space and we're going to have a conversation today about knowing your worth.
Yes.
And I'm reading you kind of describe last night and the tears and your interaction with your dear husband, who's a very dear friend of mine, Rob, and just his response and your response. It was just so beautiful. And in fact, even today, my wife said to me before I came to do this episode of this 3 Words podcast, my dear wife, Teresa, said, you and Amy have this great balance because you're continuing to say to individuals and all the folks that you're talking to, this notion of not hitting the pandemic pause button and just stopping your life and thinking about how do we just bunker in and how do we shelter until we can just get back to normal and continuing to think, how can I progress and grow and mature during this time and become robust and physically vital and relationally connected and emotionally healthy? And then she's like, but then Amy's also saying, it's okay if you don't get out of bed today. It's okay if you don't put on your shoes. It's okay if you don't get a shower. You need to taste and experience grace, to be right where you are and to not be as productive as you would have hoped.
Yes.
And in many ways, it goes back to this conversation, knowing your worth and what you believe to be true about you. So
it really does. I'm a 3 on the Enneagram, which is an achiever, success, go, create, big dreams, all of it, what you're saying. But I keep hitting these walls where literally getting out of bed and putting on anything besides joggers or leggings feels like, I think that's a win because everything else feels really hard right now.
Yeah,
or my
hard.
big expectations, I've got to make them I have to have way more self-compassion for my goals than I normally do in a pandemic right now.
And for yourself.
Yes.
You and I and others. There is no perfect way to respond to the pandemic.
There's not.
We've not done this before. I was sharing with a group of people recently, of course, via Zoom, that this is one of the first situations in our lives, if not the only one, where none of us has a mentor.
Yeah.
There is nobody who's written on it. There's nobody who has said, this is how you navigate this. From the world leader down to my 12-year-old son, nobody knows how to do this. And so we need to use this term in your book, Grace Looks Amazing on You, this idea that we can extend grace to people and not judge them for responding in a variety of different ways, because we're all trying to figure this out together. But at the very root of this, at the very root of figuring this out, we need to know our worth. Amy, the most important thing about us is what comes into our mind when we think about ourselves. And particularly during this time when we cannot be judged by our productivity or by our position, because many of us, we're positionless. We're all working in our living rooms or in our basements or in our attics. And even if you are the vice president or president or CEO or the director of, like, if you feel so small. Prosperity, I mean, people are losing their jobs every day, and we're watching our finances, and we have dear friends, and you have dear friends that are wondering, a week from now or 2 weeks from now or 3 weeks from now, am I going to be able to feed my children? And what is my future? This business that I started to build and the building that I bought to build this business, there's so much. It's all about identity.
It is, which was actually the core of what I was wrestling with.
Okay. Tell me more.
I think looking at the lineup of what I had for the spring, and it all got canceled. And on top of it, I got handed a new set of things to be doing that I hadn't been building toward at all.
Yeah.
And so my wheelhouse was removed. And now I'm in this blender of like, good luck on, making sure everybody can read at the end of the year. Like
Right.
they might be dumber after all this. And I need to have grace for that too.
I doubt that.
But just wrestling with like unfairness and loss and grief and dreams that are on hold and just so much. But the beauty of it really, like, so I was wrestling with my worth because, the narrative our culture wants to give us, the story our culture is telling us, is that our worth is usually tied to a number. It's tied to you can look up somebody's net worth, their salary or whatever salary, your weight. Often I think, when I hit this number, or your size, when I hit this, or even your age. I think we value youth over,
Being
older,
seasoned.
seasoned wisdom, the wisdom. Yes. And so, but then I think about, okay, it's not about a size. It's not about a number. In fact, it makes me think about nautical terms. When you're boarding a boat, they often write how many souls are on board. And then if there's a tragedy like the Titanic, they record how many souls are lost. Wow. And so the dignity, value, and worth of a soul is what you can rest in. Like I'm a created soul and I have life inside of me. My worth rests there. You have, like, everyone we interact with is a soul and so valuable. And even when I can't produce and I can't achieve and I can't be successful, I am a created, loved soul that even when I'm asleep, I'm loved. And when I'm not producing, I'm loved. And so it really did come back to that. Even this morning when I had to just continue to patch up my brokenness with grace, because I'm a soul that's loved no matter what.
What I'm hearing you say is, I am enough.
Yeah.
In and of myself, I am enough. In and of yourself, if you're listening today, you are enough. Regardless of what you can produce, regardless of any of those numbers that Amy just shared, you are enough. I think a lot about this notion of identity. I know you do too. We've talked about it for years as we worked on campuses, as we've traveled and spoken together. This idea of identity is what fuels initiation. that our intentionality, that our initiation, that our ideas, they flow out of our identity, that our behavior flows out of our beliefs and what we believe to be true of ourselves, it is truly the most important thing about us. Do we believe that we are someone, that we are more than just a something, that we are a soul? Mm-hmm. Do we believe that we are significant, that we can change the world, that we can make a difference? Do we believe that we are special, that we're unique, that there's no one like us on the planet, that we are strong, that we can make changes and choices in our lives to do something, to be something different, that we're secure? We've talked a lot about this, that even in the midst of this, where is your security found? Where do you rest? Because regardless of what tragedy happens, we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And we've seen this throughout history. People who have gone through incredibly challenging times, we will be okay. We're secure. And then there's one more thing. And this is where you and I resonate together as those who have a profound and deep and meaningful relationship with God, that we are spiritual, that we are more than meets the eye. And regardless of how you make sense of spirituality or religion or belief in an ultimate being, that I think we'd all agree what you just said, there is something incredibly sacred about being human. And so to be able to say, know your worth, it's not just this little cheap phrase.
Yeah.
It's deep, it's real. And even last night, it sounds like, and this morning, as I was kind of tracking with you on social media, it's like you needed to be reminded of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I really appreciate you being here today, Amy. I know we joked about the fact that it's been a while since you've been out of the house. So it's been great to have you here in this space. And even as we were talking off camera, it's like, you know what? I don't know where this conversation was going to go and what it was going to look like. We don't script these things out. But to know that we wanted to kind of be right where we are right now.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
And and I can acknowledge as well, like even last week, and as I was interacting with a variety of individuals, this is getting long. And it's feeling hard.
Yes.
And it's going to probably be a mountain range, or we're going to go up and down for a while to come. And if it's not the global pandemic, it's going to be something else, because life is difficult and life is hard, and there is tragedy and there is suffering, but there is also beauty and there is courage and there is tenacity and there is perseverance, the inability and the refusal to ever give up. And it really rests and finds its root in those most important three words, and that is to know your worth. For life coaching, consulting services, or to hire a keynote speaker, please visit dmbcoaching.com.